My name is Rebecca Morgan, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had the perfect American dream. A beautiful colonial-style home in Westchester County, New York, two incredible kids, and a husband who seemed to have it all: looks, charm, and a thriving career as a senior partner at one of Manhattan's most prestigious law firms. I met James Morgan at Columbia Law School 15 years ago. I was pursuing my master's in psychology while he was in his final year of law school. He was everything I'd ever wanted: ambitious, intelligent, and attentive in ways that made me feel like the most important person in the world. Our wedding at the Plaza Hotel was featured in the New York Times wedding section. 500 guests, a Vera Wang dress, and promises of forever. We honeymooned in the Maldives, making love under the stars and planning our future. 3 kids, a house in the suburbs, maybe a summer home in the Hamptons one day. For years, it seemed like we were living that dream. James' career soared. He made partner at 35, bringing in millions in billable hours. I put my own career aspirations on hold when our son Tyler was born, then again when our daughter Emma came along 3 years later. Tyler is now 12, a straight-A student who loves basketball and coding. Emma is 9, a budding artist who fills our house with her paintings and laughter. I volunteered at their schools, organized fundraisers for the PTA, hosted dinner parties where James' colleagues and their wives would praise what a lovely couple we made. But beneath the surface, cracks had been forming for months. It started small. James coming home later, always with reasonable explanations. Big case, he'd say. Client dinner. Emergency meeting with a judge. I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? We built 13 years of marriage together. Then came the distance. He stopped asking about my day, stopped looking up from his phone during dinner, stopped reaching for me in bed the way he used to. When I tried to initiate intimacy, he'd claim exhaustion or stress. This case is killing me, Becca, he'd say. Once it's over, things will get back to normal. But they never did. 3 months ago, I found the first real evidence. A receipt from Tiffany & Co. for a diamond bracelet worth $15,000. I never received any bracelet. When I asked James about it, he claimed it was a gift for a client who'd helped him close a major deal. It's business, Becca, he said, annoyed. That's how things work in my world. You'd understand if you hadn't given up your career. That comment stung more than the lie. I'd given up my career for him, for our family. And now he was using it against me. 2 weeks ago, everything changed. I was at Starbucks near his office in Midtown, waiting to surprise him with lunch from his favorite Italian place. A last-ditch effort to reconnect, to remind him of the early days when we'd steal lunch breaks together. That's when I saw them. James was sitting in a corner booth with a woman I didn't recognize. She was younger, probably late 20s, with perfectly highlighted blonde hair, designer clothes, and a confidence that radiated across the room. They were sitting close, too close. His hand was on her thigh. Her fingers were playing with his tie. And then he kissed her. Not a friendly peck, a real kiss, the kind that spoke of familiarity and passion. I stood frozen, the bag of Italian food slipping from my hands and crashing to the floor. The sound made several people turn and look, including James. Our eyes locked across the coffee shop. The color drained from his face. The woman, his mistress, turned to see what he was looking at. When she saw me standing there, tears streaming down my face, do you know what she did? He smirked. Actually smirked at me. Like this was some kind of victory. Then she leaned in and whispered something in James' ear. Whatever she said made him relax slightly. He stood up, straightened his tie, and walked toward me with the confidence of a man who'd argued hundreds of cases in court. Becca, let's talk outside, he said calmly, as if I was a hysterical client who needed to be managed. Who is she? My voice came out as a whisper. Not here, he hissed, grabbing my arm and steering me out onto the street. Once outside, he dropped the calm facade. What are you doing here? Are you following me now? Following you? I came to surprise you with lunch. Who is that woman? She's a colleague, Becca. You're overreacting. I saw you kiss her. People on the sidewalk were starting to stare. James looked around, clearly uncomfortable with the public scene. Fine. Yes. I've been seeing someone, but it's not what you think. Not what I think. You're having an affair. Keep your voice down, he snapped. Do you want to humiliate me in front of everyone? Humiliate him? The audacity was staggering. How long? I demanded. He hesitated. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of him coming home and kissing me goodnight while carrying another woman's perfume on his clothes. I want her name, I said. Why does it matter? I want her name. Vanessa, he finally said. Vanessa Sterling. She's an associate at the firm. Vanessa Sterling. I committed the name to memory, along with every detail of her face. I'm going home, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Don't follow me. Don't come home tonight. I need time to think. Becca, wait. But I was already walking away, my mind racing, my heart shattering into a million pieces. I drove home in a daze, grateful that the kids were at school and wouldn't see me like this. Once inside our beautiful home, the home we'd bought together, decorated together, filled with memories, I collapsed on the kitchen floor and cried until I had no tears left. Then I got up, washed my face, and made a decision. I wasn't going to be the crying, betrayed wife who begged her husband to come back. I wasn't going to be the victim in this story. I was going to be smart, strategic, patient. I was going to destroy them both. But first, I needed information. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. So I opened my laptop and did what any modern woman would do. I started researching Vanessa Sterling. What I found made my blood run cold. To be continued in part 2. The woman who took everything. Part 2. The woman who took everything. Vanessa Sterling wasn't just any associate at James' law firm. She was a Harvard Law graduate who joined Morrison and Associates 3 years ago and quickly made a name for herself as aggressive, ambitious, and willing to do whatever it took to get ahead. Her Instagram was public, a carefully curated collection of photos showing her luxury lifestyle. Designer handbags, first-class travel, expensive dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants. For someone who'd only been practicing law for 3 years, she was living well above her means. Unless, of course, someone was funding that lifestyle. I scrolled through her photos with a sick feeling in my stomach. There, in the background of a photo from 2 months ago taken at some rooftop bar, I could see James. She'd cropped him out mostly, but I recognized his watch, the Rolex I'd given him for our 10th anniversary. I kept digging. Her LinkedIn showed she'd worked on several of James' biggest cases. They'd traveled together to depositions in California, Texas, Florida. All those business trips where he'd claimed to be too busy to FaceTime with the kids. On her Facebook, less curated, clearly meant for actual friends rather than professional networking, I found more. Photos of her at charity galas I'd been told were men-only events. Photos of her wearing jewelry that looked suspiciously like pieces I'd seen on that Tiffany receipt. But what made my hands shake with rage was a post from 3 weeks ago. It was a photo of a bracelet, a stunning diamond tennis bracelet, with the caption, "When he knows exactly what you like, #blessed, #lucky, #Tiffany and Co. $15,000 of our money. Money from our joint account. Money that should have gone to Tyler's summer coding camp or Emma's art classes. Money that I'd earned too, back when I was working, before I sacrificed my career for our family." I took screenshots of everything, organized them into folders, started building a timeline. Then I did something that would change everything. I called an old friend from my Columbia days, Michelle Chen, who'd gone on to become one of the best divorce attorneys in New York. "Michelle, it's Rebecca Morgan. I need your help, and I need you to keep this completely confidential." We met the next day at a cafe in Brooklyn, far from anywhere I might run into James or his colleagues. Michelle listened as I laid out everything, the affair, the receipts, the timeline. When I finished, she sat back and studied me with the sharp, analytical gaze that had made her famous in courtrooms. "First question," she said. "Do you want to save the marriage?" "No," I answered without hesitation. The word surprised me, but I knew it was true. Whatever love I'd had for James had died the moment I saw him kiss Vanessa. Good. That makes this easier. Second question. "Do you want to win?" "I want to destroy him," I said quietly. "Him and her. I want them to lose everything." Michelle smiled. Not a warm smile, a predatory one. "Then we need to be smart about this. James is a lawyer. A good one. He'll know how to hide assets, how to play the system. We need to be smarter." She pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. "Here's what we're going to do. You're going to go home and act like nothing is wrong. You're going to tell James you need time to think, but you're willing to try counseling. You're going to make him think you're the forgiving wife who wants to save the marriage." Why would I do that? Because the moment you file for divorce, he's going to start hiding assets. He's going to transfer money, claim business expenses, make it very hard for us to get you what you deserve. But if he thinks you're trying to save the marriage, he'll be less careful. He might even get sloppy. She leaned forward. "Meanwhile, you're going to document everything. Every expense, every text message you can access, every piece of evidence of the affair. We're going to build a case so airtight that when we finally strike, he won't know what hit him." What about Vanessa? What about her? I want her to pay too. She knew he was married. She knew about me and the kids. She smiled at me when I caught them. Michelle nodded slowly. The firm has a strict fraternization policy, especially between partners and associates. It's a power dynamic issue. If we can prove they've been having an affair, it could cost him his partnership, and her career would be over before it really started. How do we prove it? We need more than photos and receipts. We need communications, emails, texts, phone records. Do you have access to his computer? He has a laptop at home. He uses it for work, but I know where he keeps it. Does he lock it? I thought back to all the nights I'd seen him working in his study. Not always. And I've seen him type his password. It's our wedding anniversary. Michelle raised an eyebrow. The irony is almost beautiful. Okay, here's what you do. She spent the next 2 hours walking me through a plan. How to access James' computer safely. What to look for. How to create backups without him knowing. She even gave me the contact information for a private investigator who specialized in infidelity cases. His name is Marcus Reed. Tell him I sent you. He's expensive, but he's the best. He can get us evidence that will hold up in court. When I left that cafe, I wasn't the same woman who'd walked in. I had a plan. I had allies. And I had purpose. Over the next week, I played my part perfectly. When James finally came home, I sat him down for a calm conversation. I want to try to work this out, I lied. For the kids. For everything we've built together. But I need you to end it with her. Completely. The relief on his face was almost comical. He'd been expecting a fight, maybe divorce papers. Instead, I was offering him a way out. Of course, he said quickly. It's already over. I told Vanessa it was a mistake. I told her I love you and want to save our marriage. More lies. I knew they were lies. But I smiled and nodded and suggested couples therapy. We even slept in the same bed that night, though the thought of him touching me made my skin crawl. But I endured it, knowing it was temporary, knowing that every day I played this role was another day I was gathering ammunition for the war to come. The next morning, after James left for work and the kids left for school, I put Michelle's plan into action. I opened James' laptop. The password, 082010, our wedding date, worked on the first try. And what I found there was so much worse than I'd imagined. Emails between James and Vanessa going back 8 months, not 6 like he'd claimed. Explicit messages, photos, videos, plans for a future together. But worse, so much worse, were the emails about me. She's gotten so boring, James had written to Vanessa. All she talks about is the kids and her volunteer work. She's let herself go. I can't remember the last time I looked at her and felt desire. You deserve better, Vanessa had responded. You deserve someone who understands your ambition, your drive. Someone who can be a real partner, not just a housewife. Housewife. The word stung. I had a master's degree from Columbia. I'd given up a promising career to raise our children, and they reduced me to just a housewife. But the emails that truly made me see red were the ones where they discussed their future. Once you figure out the asset situation, we can finally be together properly, Vanessa had written. I've been researching New York divorce law. If you can move money into the right accounts before you file, you can minimize what she gets. She hasn't worked in years. She'll be desperate to settle quickly. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning to steal my future. I copied everything onto 3 separate USB drives, stored them in different locations. Then I called Marcus Reed. Michelle Chen gave me your number, I said when he answered. I need help catching my husband and his mistress, and I need it to be documented in a way that will hold up in court. Tell me everything, he said. I spent an hour on the phone with Marcus, laying out the situation. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Morgan, he finally said, your husband is a lawyer. This won't be a typical case. He'll be watching for surveillance, for anything that could be used against him. Can you do it or not? I can do it, but it's going to take time and it's going to be expensive. We're talking $25,000 minimum for the level of surveillance you need. $25,000. It was a fortune. But I had my own money, an inheritance from my grandmother that I'd kept in a separate account James didn't know about. Money I'd been saving for emergencies. This was definitely an emergency. When can you start? Tomorrow. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus provided me with a detailed picture of my husband's double life. Photos of James and Vanessa leaving work together, going to her apartment in Tribeca. Photos of them having dinner at expensive restaurants, holding hands across the table. Photos of them checking into the Peninsula Hotel for afternoon meetings. But Marcus also uncovered something I hadn't expected. Vanessa had done this before. She'd had an affair with a senior partner at her previous firm in Boston. That partner had left his wife and 3 kids for Vanessa. They'd been together for 6 months before Vanessa dumped him, right after he'd made her a beneficiary on his life insurance policy and given her a loan of $50,000 that she never repaid. The man had tried to sue her for fraud, but she'd claimed it was a gift, claimed he'd promised to take care of her. The case had been settled quietly, with the firm paying her $75,000 to go away and sign an NDA. Then she'd moved to New York and started over at Morrison and Associates. This woman is a professional, Marcus told me when he delivered his final report. This isn't just an affair. It's a pattern. She targets successful married men, gets them to fall in love with her, extracts money and career advancement, then moves on. Does James know about her past? Based on my investigation? No. She's been very careful to keep that part of her life hidden. New social media accounts, new professional network. The only reason I found it is because I have contacts at her old firm who remembered her. This was perfect. This was exactly what I needed. I had evidence of the affair. I had proof of James planning to hide assets. I had Vanessa's history as a con artist. Now I just needed the perfect moment to strike. That moment came 2 weeks later, at the worst possible time and place imaginable. James' firm was hosting their annual charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. 500 guests, including judges, politicians, and the city's legal elite. It was the social event of the season, and James had been looking forward to it for months. You should get your hair done, he told me earlier that week. Maybe buy a new dress. This is an important night for the firm. I'd smiled and agreed, playing my part. I got my hair done at the salon he liked, bought a stunning emerald green gown from Bergdorf Goodman, using our joint account, just like Vanessa did. But what James didn't know was that I'd also invited 2 special guests to the gala, a reporter from the New York Post who owed Michelle a favor, and Vanessa Sterling's ex-lover from Boston, who was more than happy to fly down and tell his story about how she destroyed his life. The night of the gala, I looked stunning. James actually did a double take when he saw me. "Wow, Becca," he said. "You look incredible." "Thank you, darling," I replied sweetly, adjusting his bow tie. Tonight is going to be unforgettable. I had no idea how right I was. We arrived at the Met fashionably late. The Great Hall was transformed into an elegant ballroom, with champagne flowing and string quartets playing. James immediately went into networking mode, shaking hands and introducing me to colleagues and clients. And then I saw her. Vanessa Sterling stood near the bar, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. She was laughing at something one of the junior partners was saying, touching his arm in that casual, flirtatious way I'd seen in her photos with James. When she saw us approaching, her expression flickered for just a moment, surprise, maybe concern, before settling back into confident composure. "James," she said brightly, "and you must be Rebecca. I've heard so much about you." The audacity, the sheer, breathtaking audacity of this woman. "Vanessa," I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "How lovely to finally meet you. James has mentioned you so many times." I saw James tense beside me, but Vanessa just smiled wider. "All good things, I hope," she said. "Oh yes. He tells me you work so closely together. All those late nights. All those business trips." There was a beat of silence. Then James cleared his throat. "Vanessa, would you excuse us? I see Judge Morrison across the room, and I need to." Actually, I interrupted. "I was hoping Vanessa and I could chat, get to know each other better, since you two work so closely together." James looked panicked, but he couldn't refuse without making a scene. "Of course. I'll just be a moment." He walked away, leaving Vanessa and me alone. She sipped her champagne, studying me with those cold, calculating eyes. "You know," she said quietly, "I wondered when you'd finally confront me. I've been waiting for weeks." "Have you?" "James told me you knew about us. He said you were trying to work things out, play the understanding wife, but I knew you were up to something. You're not as stupid as he thinks you are." The casual way she spoke about my husband, about my marriage, made my blood boil. But I kept my voice calm. "You're right. I'm not stupid, which is why I know exactly what you are." Her smile faltered slightly. "Excuse me?" "Sophia Martinez," I said, pulling out my phone and showing her a photo Marcus had obtained. "That's her name, right? Your ex-lover's wife in Boston? The one whose life you destroyed before moving here?" Vanessa's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you do. Just like you know about the $50,000 you stole from David Chen, the $75,000 settlement, the NDA you signed promising to never work in Boston again." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "Because I have David Chen here tonight. He's very eager to tell his story to anyone who'll listen." including that reporter from the Post over there. I pointed across the room to where Michelle's reporter friend was chatting with some senior partners. Vanessa's confident facade crumbled. What do you want? I want you to understand something. You picked the wrong wife to mess with. And now. But I didn't get to finish my sentence. Because at that exact moment, the lights dimmed for the evening's presentation. And on the massive screen at the front of the Great Hall, instead of the planned video about the firm's charitable work, a very different video began to play. A video of James and Vanessa in bed together. The gasps echoed through the hall. Then screams. Then chaos. I hadn't planned this. This wasn't part of my carefully orchestrated revenge, which meant someone else was playing this game too. And as I watched Vanessa's face turn from pale to green, as I saw James pushing through the crowd toward the AV booth, as I heard the whispers and saw phones being pulled out to record the disaster, I realized something terrifying. This was only the beginning. When everything falls apart, the video played for exactly 47 seconds before someone finally killed the power to the projector. But 47 seconds was more than enough time for 500 of New York's legal elite to see James Morgan, senior partner at Morrison & Associates, in bed with Vanessa Sterling, a junior associate at his firm. The silence that followed was deafening. Then the whispers started. Like wildfire spreading through dry grass, the gossip consumed the room. Phones came out. People started recording, tweeting, texting. Within minutes, this would be all over social media. I stood frozen, my champagne glass still in my hand, trying to process what had just happened. This wasn't my plan. I had carefully orchestrated a slow, methodical destruction. This was chaos. This was nuclear. James was screaming at someone near the AV booth. Vanessa had disappeared, probably to the bathroom, or maybe she'd fled the building entirely. The senior partners were huddled together, their faces ranging from shock to fury. Michelle Chen appeared at my elbow, her expression grim. "Tell me you didn't do this," she hissed. "I didn't. I swear, Michelle, this wasn't me. I was going to. It doesn't matter what you are going to do. Everyone's going to think it was you. We need to get you out of here. Now." She grabbed my arm and started steering me toward the exit. But we were stopped by Harrison Morrison, the founding partner of the firm. He was 72 years old, built like a bulldog, and had a reputation for crushing anyone who threatened his firm's reputation. "Mrs. Morgan," he said, his voice like ice. "A word. In private." Michelle stepped forward. "Mr. Morrison, my client has nothing to say at this time." "Your client?" His eyes narrowed. "So she did hire you. Interesting timing, don't you think, Michelle? Your client discovers her husband's affair, hires the most aggressive divorce attorney in the city, and then suddenly explicit videos are playing at our charity gala?" "My client had nothing to do with this," Michelle said firmly. "And if you're planning to make accusations, I suggest you speak to your own people. Because that video had to come from somewhere inside your firm's network." Morrison's jaw tightened. He looked at me, really looked at me. And for a moment I saw something that might have been sympathy flicker across his face. "Go home, Mrs. Morgan," he said quietly. "This is going to get very ugly, very fast. Protect your children, because the media is going to be circling by morning." He was right. By the time Michelle got me into a cab, my phone was already exploding with texts and calls. Friends, family, even reporters who'd somehow gotten my number. I turned off my phone and stared out the window as we drove through Manhattan, the glittering lights of the city blurring through my tears. "Who did this?" I asked Michelle. "If it wasn't me, and it wasn't you, then who?" "I don't know, but we need to find out. Because whoever it was just changed the entire game." When I got home, I found my sister Sarah waiting on the front porch. She lived in Connecticut, but had clearly driven straight over when she heard the news. "Oh, Becca," she said, pulling me into a hug. "Are you okay?" "I saw the videos on Twitter." "It's already on Twitter?" "Honey, it's everywhere. Morrison Gala is trending. There are already think pieces being written about workplace harassment and power dynamics in law firms." I felt sick. This was spiraling out of control so fast. "Where are the kids?" I asked, suddenly panicking. "Please tell me they're not." "They're at my house. I picked them up from school and told them we were having a sleepover. They don't know anything. But Becca, you need to talk to them before they hear about this from someone else." She was right. But what was I supposed to say? How do you explain to a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old that their father's infidelity just went viral? That night was the longest of my life. I sat in my dark living room, staring at the fireplace, trying to figure out who could have done this. It had to be someone with access to the video. But where did the video even come from? Had James and Vanessa filmed themselves? Had someone secretly recorded them? Then it hit me. Marcus, my private investigator. He'd been following them for weeks. Could he have? I called him immediately, not caring that it was past midnight. Mrs. Morgan. He answered on the second ring. I was expecting your call. Did you do this? Did you play that video? No, but I know who did. My heart stopped. Who? I'll need to show you. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? There's something you need to see. Marcus, just tell me. Not over the phone. Meet me at the same cafe where we first met. 9 a.m. And Mrs. Morgan? You might want to bring your lawyer. He hung up. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through possibilities. By the time dawn broke, I'd drunk 4 cups of coffee and was running purely on anxiety and adrenaline. Michelle met me at the cafe, looking as exhausted as I felt. Have you seen the news? She asked, sliding her iPad across the table. The headline on the New York Times website read, Senior partner at prestigious law firm caught in sex scandal at charity gala. The article was brutal, detailing not just the video, but also raising questions about workplace harassment, abuse of power, and the firm's culture. Morrison and Associates was already in damage control mode, with a statement saying they were conducting a thorough investigation and that appropriate action would be taken. James has been suspended, Michelle told me. The firm put out a statement an hour ago, and Vanessa's been fired. They're claiming they had no knowledge of the relationship and that it violated firm policy. They're lying. Everyone at that firm knew. Of course they're lying. But right now, they're trying to save themselves. And that means throwing James and Vanessa under the bus. Marcus arrived exactly at 9, carrying a laptop and a large envelope. Before I show you what I found, he said, I need you to understand something. This case just got a lot more complicated than a simple infidelity investigation. What do you mean? I asked. He opened his laptop and pulled up a video file. This is security footage from the building where Vanessa's apartment is located. I have a contact in building security who's been helping me with the investigation. He pressed play. The footage showed the lobby of a luxury apartment building. Timestamp. 3 days ago, 11:47 p.m. A woman entered the building. She was wearing a hoodie and sunglasses, clearly trying to hide her face. But I could still see enough to know it wasn't Vanessa. Who is that? Michelle asked. Keep watching, Marcus said. The woman went to the elevator, used a keycard to access it, and disappeared upstairs. 47 minutes later, she came back down and left the building. Now watch this, Marcus said, pulling up another video file. This one showed Vanessa's apartment door. The same woman from the lobby appeared, used a key to enter the apartment, and came out 45 minutes later carrying what looked like a laptop bag. She stole Vanessa's laptop? I asked. Not just her laptop. She also accessed Vanessa's home computer. And based on the timing, I believe she's the one who uploaded that video to the gala's presentation system. But who is she? Marcus pulled up a still frame from the footage and enhanced it. Despite the sunglasses and hoodie, I could now make out her features. My blood ran cold. That's Sophia Martinez, I whispered. David Chen's ex-wife. The woman Vanessa destroyed in Boston. Marcus nodded grimly. She's been planning this for over a year, following Vanessa to New York, waiting for the perfect moment to destroy her career the same way Vanessa destroyed her marriage. But how did she know about the gala? How did she know? Because I told her. A voice said from behind us. I spun around to find a woman standing there. Mid-40s, elegant, with the kind of understated beauty that spoke of old money and good breeding. And her eyes were filled with a rage I recognized because I'd seen it in my own mirror. Sophia? I asked. Rebecca, she said, sliding into the booth next to Michelle. We need to talk. Over the next hour, Sophia Martinez told us a story that made my own situation look like a fairy tale. 3 years ago, she'd had everything. A loving husband, 2 beautiful daughters, a successful career as an art curator. Then Vanessa Sterling entered their lives. David Chen was a partner at one of Boston's most prestigious law firms. Vanessa started working there as a junior associate. Within months, she'd seduced David, convinced him that Sophia didn't understand him, that he deserved better. She was so good at it, Sophia said, her voice tight with old pain. She made him feel young again, exciting. She made him believe that I was the problem, that our marriage was holding him back from his true potential. David left Sophia and their daughters. He set Vanessa up in an apartment, bought her expensive gifts, promised her the world. And then, 6 months later, Vanessa dumped him, but not before she drained $50,000 from him, convinced him to make her a beneficiary on his life insurance, and destroyed his reputation at the firm. When he tried to get the money back, she threatened to claim sexual harassment. The firm paid her off to make her go away. And David? I asked quietly. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. He killed himself 8 months ago, drove his car into a tree, left a note saying he couldn't live with what he'd done, how he destroyed everything for a woman who never loved him. The cafe fell silent. I'm so sorry, I finally said. Don't be sorry. Help me finish what I started. What do you mean? Sophia leaned forward. That video at the gala was just the beginning. I have something much bigger planned, but I need your help. She pulled out her phone and showed us a video file. Not the one from the gala, something else. Something that made my eyes widen. Is that? Michelle started. James and Vanessa? Yes. But not just having an affair. Listen to what they're saying. She turned up the volume. James' voice came through clearly. The Peterson case settlement money. We can move $2 million into the offshore account before anyone notices. Peterson's so old and confused, he'll never realize he got shorted. Vanessa's voice. And the Henderson Trust Fund? Can we access that? James. Already working on it. That family's so dysfunctional. They'll never question the accounting. We could pull out at least $500,000 before the end of the year. My hands started shaking. He's been stealing from clients. Not just stealing, Marcus said grimly. This is major fraud. We're talking years in prison if this gets out. Sophia smiled, a cold, terrible smile. And it's going to get out. But not yet. First, I want Vanessa to suffer. I want her to lose everything. Her career, her reputation, her freedom. Just like she took everything from me. And James? I asked. That's up to you, Rebecca. You can use this evidence to destroy him, or you can use it as leverage to get everything you want in the divorce. Your choice. I looked at Michelle, who was studying the video file with the sharp focus of a predator spotting prey. This is admissible evidence, she said slowly. And with this, we could get you not just a favorable divorce settlement, but we could potentially have James disbarred and criminally prosecuted. How did you get this video? I asked Sophia. I've been watching Vanessa for over a year. Preparing. Planning. I had cameras installed in her apartment months ago, waiting for the right moment. And when I heard she was involved with another married partner, I knew this was it. This was my chance. What you did is illegal, Michelle pointed out. Secret recordings, breaking and entering. I don't care, Sophia said flatly. They destroyed my life. They killed my husband. I want them to pay. I understood that feeling. God, did I understand it? What do you need from me? I asked. I need you to keep James distracted for 1 more week. Don't file for divorce yet. Don't let him know we have this evidence. Let him think the gala video was the worst of it, that it's all going to blow over. Why? Because in 1 week, I'm going to release this video to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. They'll open a criminal investigation into James and the firm, and I want to make sure he can't run or hide assets before that happens. Michelle shook her head. This is getting into dangerous territory. If you release that video, Rebecca could be implicated as an accessory. No, Sophia interrupted. Rebecca has nothing to do with this. I acted alone. She didn't even know about the recordings until today. And I have documentation proving that. She pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Everything's in here. My surveillance logs, showing when I installed the cameras. Receipts for equipment, all purchased before you even hired Marcus. You're clean, Rebecca. I made sure of it. I looked at the folder, then at Sophia. Why are you protecting me? You don't even know me. Because you're another victim of Vanessa Sterling's games. Another woman whose life she tried to destroy. And because. She paused, her voice breaking slightly. Because I wish someone had helped me before it was too late. Before David did what he did. The weight of her loss hung in the air between us. 1 week, I finally said. I'll give you 1 week. But Sophia, after this is over, you need to talk to someone. A therapist. This kind of revenge. It won't bring David back. I know, she said quietly. But at least it will give his death meaning. At least Vanessa will finally face consequences for what she's done. We left the cafe with a plan. Sophia would continue her surveillance. Marcus would document everything legally that he could. Michelle would prepare divorce papers, but hold off on filing. And I would go home and pretend that my world wasn't falling apart. But when I got home, I found something that changed everything. James was there, sitting in our living room, and he wasn't alone. Harrison Morrison, the senior partner, was with him, along with 2 men I didn't recognize but who had lawyer written all over them. Rebecca, Harrison said, standing when I entered. Thank you for joining us. We need to talk about how we're going to handle this situation. What situation? I asked carefully. The situation where your husband's career and reputation have been destroyed by what we believe to be a coordinated attack. And we think you're behind it. My heart started pounding. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play games, Mrs. Morgan, one of the other lawyers said. We know you hired Michelle Chen. We know you've been planning to divorce your husband. And we know that video didn't just magically appear at the gala. I didn't. We're prepared to make you an offer, Harrison interrupted. A very generous offer. James agrees to a quiet divorce. You get a substantial settlement, say $5 million, the house, and full custody of the children. In exchange, you sign an NDA, agree not to pursue any further action against James or the firm, and destroy any evidence you may have gathered. $5 million. A year ago, that would have seemed like all the money in the world. Now it just seemed like hush money. And if I don't accept? I asked. James spoke for the first time. Then we destroy you, Becca. We'll paint you as an obsessed, vindictive wife who orchestrated all of this. We'll make sure you never see a dime of my money. We'll fight for custody and make sure every judge in New York knows you're unstable. Is that a threat? It's a promise, one of the lawyers said. I looked at James, really looked at him. This man I'd loved for 15 years. This man I'd built a life with. And I realized I didn't know him at all. I need 24 hours to think about it, I said. You have 12 hours, Harrison replied. We need an answer by midnight tonight. After that, the offer is off the table, and we go to war. They left, and I immediately called Michelle. They're trying to buy my silence, I told her. $5 million and an NDA. Don't take it, she said immediately. Not yet. We have leverage they don't know about. That video of James discussing client fraud? That's worth way more than $5 million. But they're threatening to destroy me, to take my kids. They're bluffing. They have to be. Because if they go to war with you, everything comes out. The affair, the fraud, all of it. They're trying to scare you into taking a settlement because they're scared of what you might have. So what do? You call their bluff. You tell them you want $20 million, the house, full custody, and James' full cooperation in revealing everything about the client fraud. You make them understand that you have something that can destroy not just James, but the entire firm. And if they don't believe me? Michelle's voice was cold. Then we release Sophia's video to the DA tomorrow morning and let the chips fall where they may. I spent the rest of that day in a state of anxiety so intense I thought I might throw up. This was it. The moment where I either folded and accepted their offer, or I went all in and risked everything. At 11 p.m., just an hour before their deadline, I got a text from an unknown number. Look outside. I went to the window and saw a car parked across the street. Vanessa Sterling sat in the driver's seat, staring at my house. My phone rang. Rebecca. Vanessa's voice was different now, not confident and mocking. Scared. Desperate. We need to talk. Just the two of us. Please. Why would I talk to you? Because I know who's really behind all of this. And if you don't listen to me, we're both going to end up destroyed. Against my better judgment, against every instinct screaming at me not to, I went outside. Vanessa rolled down her window as I approached. In the dim streetlight, I could see she'd been crying. Her perfect makeup was smudged, her eyes red and swollen. You have 2 minutes, I said. Sophia Martinez, she said. She's the one who played that video. But Rebecca, she's not going to stop there. She's planning something much worse. Something that will destroy both of us. Both of us. What do you have to lose? You already lost your job, your reputation. My freedom, she interrupted. I did things, Rebecca. Bad things. Things that could put me in prison. And Sophia has evidence of all of it. She's been watching me for over a year. I know. She told me. Vanessa's eyes widened. She told you? Then you know she's insane. You know she's not going to stop until everyone is destroyed. Her husband killed himself because of what you did to him, I said coldly. I'd say she has a right to be angry. I didn't force David to do anything. He made his own choices. You seduced a married man, stole his money, destroyed his career, and then abandoned him when you were done. You're a predator, Vanessa. And you're so perfect? She shot back. You really think James fell for me because I'm a predator? He fell for me because you were boring. Because you stopped trying. Because you turned into exactly the kind of suburban housewife that drives men to cheat. The words hit like physical blows, but I refused to let her see me flinch. Is that what you tell yourself? That it's the wife's fault? I'm saying that marriages don't break because of the other woman. They break because they were already broken. You're right, I said, surprising her. My marriage was broken. James stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a convenience. And maybe I let that happen. Maybe I got so lost in being a mother that I forgot to be a wife. Then why are you trying to destroy him? Why not just divorce him quietly and move on? Because he doesn't get to betray me and then walk away unscathed. Because you don't get to mock me and destroy my life without consequences. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that sent chills down my spine. Sophia has a video of James discussing client fraud. She's going to give it to the DA. And when she does, James will go to prison. But Rebecca, so will I. Because I helped him. I was part of it. You what? The offshore accounts, the settlement money, all of it. I helped set it up. I thought we were in love, that we were going to be together. I thought. She laughed bitterly. I thought I was different, that he actually cared about me. But I was just another Mark, wasn't I? Just another woman he used. I stared at her, seeing her clearly for the first time, not as a villain or a seductress, but as another woman who'd been fooled by James Morgan's charm. What do you want from me? I asked. I want us to work together. Pull our evidence. Go to the DA ourselves. Before Sophia does. We can make a deal. Immunity in exchange for testifying against James and the firm. We can both walk away from this. Why would I help you? Because if you don't, Sophia is going to make sure we both go down. She doesn't care about justice. She just wants revenge. And she won't stop until everyone is destroyed. I looked at this woman who had slept with my husband, mocked my pain, and helped steal from innocent clients. And I made a decision that would change everything. Get out of your car, I said. You're coming inside. We have a lot to talk about. As Vanessa followed me into my house, into the home she'd helped destroy, I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Michelle, Marcus, and Sophia. Emergency meeting. Tomorrow morning. Everything's changed. Because I just realized something crucial. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about survival. And sometimes to survive, you have to make alliances with the most unlikely people. Even the woman who stole your husband. The alliance no one saw coming. Vanessa Sterling sat on my couch, the same couch where James and I had cuddled watching movies, where I'd read bedtime stories to Tyler and Emma, where I'd built 13 years of family memories. Having her there felt like a violation. But I pushed down my emotions and focused on what mattered. Information. Start talking, I said, handing her a glass of water. And don't leave anything out. Vanessa wrapped her hands around the glass, her perfectly manicured nails tapping nervously against the sides. Without her usual confidence, she looked younger, more vulnerable. It started about 8 months ago, she began. James approached me about a case, the Peterson settlement. Edgar Peterson was a 92-year-old man who'd won a medical malpractice suit, $20 million. James was handling the settlement distribution. And James said there was an opportunity. Peterson had advanced dementia. His family was fighting over the money, not paying attention to the details. James said we could skim $2 million off the top, put it in an offshore account, and no one would ever notice. We? I asked sharply. He said it was for us, for our future together. He told me he was leaving you, that we needed money to start our new life. He made it sound romantic, like we were partners planning our escape. She laughed bitterly. I was so stupid. What happened to the $2 million? It's in a Cayman Islands account. But Rebecca, I don't have access to it. James does. He was supposed to transfer half to me once the divorce was final, but now. She trailed off. Now you realize he was never going to give you anything, I finished. You were a useful tool. Someone he could blame if the fraud was ever discovered. Vanessa nodded miserably. There's more. The Henderson Trust Fund, the Schwartz Estate Settlement, the Rodriguez Family Trust. Over the past 6 months, we've moved more than $7 million into various offshore accounts. $7 million. The number was staggering. Who else knows about this? At the firm? I think Harrison Morrison suspects something, but he's been looking the other way. As long as the money keeps flowing and clients don't complain, he doesn't want to know the details. But if this goes public, they'll throw James under the bus so fast. And you with him, I said. Exactly. That's why I need your help. If we go to the DA together, if we offer to cooperate, we can make a deal. I'll testify against James and the firm. You'll provide evidence of the affair and fraud, and we both walk away. I studied her carefully. And what about Sophia? She has video evidence of you and James discussing the fraud. She's planning to release it. Then we beat her to it. We go to the DA tomorrow morning, before she has a chance. We control the narrative. It was tempting, so tempting, but something didn't feel right. How do I know you're telling me everything? How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? Vanessa pulled out her phone and opened her email. Because I'm going to show you something that will prove I'm telling the truth. And Rebecca, once you see this, you're going to understand that we're not enemies. We're both victims of the same manual. She turned her phone toward me. The email was from James, sent just 3 hours ago. V. The wife knows more than we thought. Morrison's lawyers are working on a settlement, but if she doesn't take it, we're moving to Plan B. I'll transfer the offshore funds to the secondary account tonight and disappear the evidence. If this goes south, you were a disgruntled employee who seduced me and acted alone on the fraud. I have emails and documents that will prove it. Sorry, baby, but I have to protect myself and my kids. Jay. My hands started shaking as I read it again. He was going to frame you for everything. Yes. And once I was in prison, he'd probably divorce you, take the kids, and disappear with the $7 million to start over somewhere new. Maybe the Cayman Islands. Maybe Dubai. Somewhere without an extradition treaty. I sat down heavily, my mind racing. James wasn't just a cheating husband. He was a criminal preparing to escape, willing to destroy anyone who got in his way, including his own mistress. Why didn't he just run already? I asked. Because of you. Because if he runs now, you get everything in the divorce, the house, his remaining assets, the pension. But if he can make you look unstable, if he can paint you as the villain in all this, he can fight for custody. And with custody comes child support from you, since you have your own money. It's all calculated, Rebecca. Every move he's made. My phone buzzed. A text from Michelle. Did you make a decision about Morrison's offer? Deadline is in 45 minutes. I looked at Vanessa. Harrison Morrison offered me $5 million and an NDA to make all this go away. Don't take it, she said immediately. It's a trap. The moment you sign that NDA, they'll use it to bury everything. James will disappear with the offshore money. I'll go to prison, and you'll be legally prohibited from talking about any of it. What's your proposal? We call Michelle Chen right now. We tell her everything. Tomorrow morning, we go to the Manhattan DA's office together. We bring all the evidence, the offshore accounts, the client fraud, the affair, everything. We offer full cooperation in exchange for immunity. And Sophia? We cut her out. She's too unstable, too focused on revenge. If we let her control this, everyone gets destroyed. But if we take control, we can protect ourselves. I thought about Sophia Martinez, about her dead husband, about the years she'd spent planning her revenge. Could I really betray her like that? My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. I'm outside. We need to talk. Sophia. I went to the window. Sure enough, there was another car parked down the street. Sophia sat in the driver's seat, watching my house. She's here, I told Vanessa, whose face went pale. Don't let her in. Rebecca, she's dangerous. She's a grieving widow who wants justice for her husband's death, I counted. Maybe she deserves to be part of this conversation. Before Vanessa could protest, I opened the front door and waved for Sophia to come inside. The moment Sophia saw Vanessa on my couch, her entire body went rigid. What is she doing here? Sophia demanded. We're having a conversation, I said calmly. One that involves all of us. Sit down, Sophia. I don't sit down with murderers, Sophia spat. Vanessa stood up, her face flushed. I didn't murder your husband. David made his own choices. You destroyed him. You took everything from him and then threw him away like garbage. Ladies, I shouted. Sit down. Both of you. Something in my tone made them both freeze. Maybe it was because for the first time in months, I wasn't the crying, betrayed wife. I was in control. They sat on opposite sides of the room, glaring at each other. Here's what's going to happen, I said. We're going to have an honest conversation, all three of us, about what we want, what we know, and how we're going to handle this situation without destroying each other in the process. There's nothing to discuss, Sophia said coldly. I'm releasing that fraud video to the DA tomorrow morning. James and Vanessa will both go to prison. End of story. Except it's not the end of the story, I said. Because while you're focused on revenge, James is planning to disappear with $7 million in stolen client money. And once he's gone, you'll never get justice for David. That got Sophia's attention. What are you talking about? I told her everything Vanessa had just revealed. The offshore accounts, the plan to frame Vanessa, James' escape plan. With each detail, Sophia's expression grew darker. So he was planning to screw everyone, she said finally, including his own mistress. Yes, Vanessa said quietly. I was just another mark, just like David. Sophia turned to look at Vanessa properly for the first time. Don't you dare compare yourself to my husband. David was a good man who made a terrible mistake. You're a con artist who destroys lives for profit. You're right, Vanessa said, surprising us both. I am. Or I was. I've done terrible things. I've hurt people. I helped steal millions of dollars from clients who trusted James. I destroyed marriages and families. And I did it all because I was good at it. Because it gave me power and money and status. Is this supposed to make me feel sorry for you? Sophia asked. No. I'm just telling you the truth. But Sophia, if you release that video tomorrow, James will disappear. He'll take that $7 million and you'll never see him face justice. Is that really what you want? What I want is for you to suffer the way you made David suffer. Then help me make James suffer instead, Vanessa said. Help me put him in prison where he belongs. Because right now, he thinks he's smarter than all of us. He thinks he's going to walk away from this rich and free. Let's prove him wrong. Sophia looked at me. What do you think? I took a deep breath. I think we all want the same thing, for James to face real consequences. But we're not going to get that if we're fighting each other. Sophia, your video is powerful, but without context, without the full story. It's just evidence of an affair and some vague talk about money. But if we work together, if we pool all our evidence and present it to the authorities as a coordinated case, we can make sure James doesn't just lose his career. We can make sure he goes to prison. And what about her? Sophia pointed at Vanessa. She's just as guilty as James. I'll take responsibility for what I did, Vanessa said. I'll testify against James, against the firm, against everyone involved. And yes, I'll probably go to prison too. But at least I'll go down knowing I did one decent thing, helping to stop James before he steals from anyone else. The room fell silent. I could see Sophia wrestling with her desire for revenge against her desire for real justice. Finally, she spoke. I want to hear your plan. All of it. And then I'll decide if I'm in. For the next 2 hours, the three of us sat in my living room, the betrayed wife, the mistress, and the widow, planning the downfall of James Morgan. Michelle Chen arrived at midnight, after I called her and told her we needed emergency legal counsel. Her eyes widened when she saw all three of us sitting together. This is either brilliant or insane, she said. I honestly can't tell which. Maybe both, I admitted. But here's what we have. We laid out everything. Sophia's video evidence of James and Vanessa discussing client fraud. Vanessa's insider knowledge of the offshore accounts and stolen money. My documentation of the affair and James' plans to flee. Marcus's surveillance footage and financial records. The email from James to Vanessa proving he was planning to frame her. Michelle studied all of it, her legal mind working through the implications. This is a prosecutor's dream case, she finally said. We have documentary evidence, witness testimony, financial records. But we need to be strategic about how we present this. What do you suggest? I asked. First, we need to secure the offshore accounts. If James suspects we're onto him, he'll move that money somewhere we can't find it. Vanessa, can you access the account information? I have the account numbers and passwords, Vanessa said. James didn't know I kept copies of everything. Insurance, in case he tried to screw me over. Which, ironically, he did. Good. We'll need to freeze those accounts through the DA's office. Second, we need to approach this as a criminal case first, divorce second. Rebecca, that means you hold off on filing divorce papers for now. Won't that look suspicious? I asked. We'll make it look like you're considering Morrison's settlement offer. That will keep James calm, thinking he's won. Meanwhile, we go to the DA tomorrow morning with everything we have. What about the midnight deadline for Morrison's offer? I asked, checking my watch. It was already 12:17 a.m. You missed it, Michelle said with a slight smile. Which means the offer is off the table, and they'll assume you're planning to fight. Perfect. That will make James desperate, which means he'll make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? Sophia asked. He'll try to move money, destroy evidence, maybe even try to intimidate witnesses. And every move he makes will just dig him deeper. Marcus, are you still running surveillance on James? Marcus nodded. 24/7. I've got eyes on his house, his office, even his car. Excellent. Keep it up. If he tries to run, I want to know immediately. Vanessa's phone buzzed. She looked at it and her face went white. It's James. He wants to meet me tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. At the apartment he rented for me. What does he want? I asked, trying to keep the jealousy out of my voice. Even now, even knowing everything, it still hurt to hear about their apartment. He doesn't say. Just says it's urgent and I need to come alone. Michelle and I exchanged looks. He's going to try to make her disappear. Sophia said flatly. He's tying up loose ends. Or he's going to try to intimidate her into keeping quiet, Michelle said. Either way, you're not going alone, Vanessa. I have to. If I don't show up, he'll know something's wrong. Then you'll wear a wire, Michelle said firmly. And Marcus will have surveillance outside. If James threatens you, if he tries anything, we'll have it on tape. That's dangerous, I said, surprised to find myself worried about Vanessa's safety. What if he gets violent? James isn't violent, Vanessa said. He's manipulative and calculating, but he's not violent. You don't know that, Sophia said. Men do desperate things when they're cornered. Trust me, I know. The pain in her voice reminded us all why we were really here. This wasn't just about James cheating or stealing money. This was about preventing another tragedy like David Chen's suicide. I'll do it, Vanessa said. I'll meet him and wear the wire. But I want police backup nearby. Real backup, not just Marcus. Michelle nodded. I'll arrange it. We'll brief the DA's office tonight about the situation. They can have detectives in position. Tonight? I asked. It's already past midnight. This is a case involving millions in client fraud and a potential flight risk, Michelle said. Trust me, the DA's office will make time. She was right. By 2 a.m., we were sitting in the Manhattan District Attorney's office, meeting with ADA Jennifer Walsh, a hard-edged prosecutor in her 40s who specialized in white-collar crime. Walsh listened to our entire story without interrupting, taking notes on a legal pad. When we finished, she sat back and studied us, 3 women from completely different worlds, brought together by one man's betrayal. This is the most unusual coalition I've ever seen in my career, she finally said. The wife, the mistress, and the widow of a previous victim. It's almost poetic. Can you help us? I asked. Oh, I can do more than help you. I can destroy James Morgan and everyone involved in this fraud. But I need to know, are all 3 of you willing to testify? To go through the trial, the media scrutiny, the defense attorneys trying to rip you apart on the stand? I looked at Vanessa and Sophia. We nodded. Yes, I said. We're ready. Walsh smiled, a sharp, predatory smile that reminded me of Michelle. Then let's talk about what happens tomorrow morning. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Vanessa would meet James at the apartment, wearing a wire. She would let him talk, let him threaten or cajole or make promises. Every word would be recorded. Meanwhile, detectives would be positioned nearby, ready to move in if things went wrong. And the moment James implicated himself further, the moment he confessed to the fraud or threatened Vanessa or revealed his escape plan, they would arrest him. What about the firm? I asked. Harrison Morrison and the other partners? They'll claim ignorance, Walsh said. They'll say James was a rogue agent acting alone, and without hard evidence linking them to the fraud. That might work. I have evidence, Vanessa said quietly. We all turned to look at her. What kind of evidence? Walsh asked. Emails, memos, documents showing that Morrison knew about irregularities in client accounts and chose to ignore them. He even helped James set up some of the offshore structures, claiming it was for tax optimization purposes. Walsh leaned forward. Can you access these documents? They're on the firm's server. I have login credentials. That's illegal access, Walsh said. We couldn't use those documents in court. What if I downloaded them before I was fired? Vanessa asked. What if I had already made copies as insurance? A slow smile spread across Walsh's face. Then that would be different. That would be an employee keeping records of potential wrongdoing. Very different indeed. By the time we left the DA's office at 4 a.m., we had a plan. In less than 2 hours, Vanessa would meet James. By noon, warrants would be issued for James' arrest and for the seizure of Morrison and Associates' financial records. Michelle drove me home, both of us exhausted but wired on adrenaline. I need to ask you something, she said as we pulled up to my house. Are you sure about this alliance with Vanessa? Once this goes public, people are going to question why you're working with your husband's mistress. Let them question, I said. The truth is, Vanessa was as much a victim of James as I was. He lied to her, used her, and was planning to destroy her. Yes, she made terrible choices. Yes, she hurt me and my family. But she's also the key to making sure James faces real justice. And Sophia? I thought about the widow who'd spent a year planning revenge for her husband's death. Sophia deserves to see the man who enabled her husband's destroyer face consequences. If working with us gives her that, then I can live with it. Michelle nodded slowly. You've changed, Rebecca. A few months ago, you would have just wanted a quiet divorce and to protect your kids from the scandal. Now, you're orchestrating a takedown of one of New York's most prestigious law firms. A few months ago, I didn't know my husband was a criminal, I said. Or that his mistress was helping him steal from vulnerable clients. Some things are more important than avoiding scandal. I went inside and tried to sleep, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. In a few hours, everything would change. James would be arrested. The firm would be raided. The media would have a field day. And my children would wake up to a world where their father was a criminal. At 5:45 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Vanessa is in position. Wire is working. We're ready. I turned on my laptop and opened the secure link Marcus had sent me. I could hear everything through Vanessa's wire. At exactly 6 a.m., I heard a door open. James' voice came through clearly. Thanks for coming. I know it's early. You said it was urgent. Vanessa replied, her voice steady despite what must have been incredible fear. It is. We need to talk about what happens next. There was a pause. The sound of footsteps. I'm leaving the country, James said bluntly. Tonight. I have tickets to Grand Cayman, then on to Dubai. I need you to come with me. My heart stopped. He was really going to run. What about Rebecca? The kids. What about them? Rebecca will get the house and whatever's left in our accounts. The kids will be fine. They're resilient. James, you can't just abandon your children. I'm not abandoning them. I'm protecting them from what's coming. Rebecca knows more than we thought, and that psycho Sofia Martinez is planning to release more evidence. If I stay, I'm going to prison. We both are. So we just run away. Start over in Dubai? Why not? We've got $7 million. We can live like royalty there. No extradition treaty. We'll be safe. What about the firm? What about Morrison? James laughed, a cold, bitter sound. Morrison's a coward. The moment the D starts asking questions, he'll throw me under the bus to save himself. I'm not waiting around for that. And me? What happens to me if I don't come with you? The silence that followed was chilling. Then you take the fall alone, James said finally. I've already set it up. Documents showing you initiated the client fraud. Emails from your account discussing the offshore transfers. If you stay, you go to prison for 15 to 20 years. But if you come with me, you'll protect me. Vanessa finished, her voice hollow. Exactly. We'll be together, like we planned. I could hear Vanessa moving, maybe pacing. What about the evidence Sophia has? The video of us discussing the fraud? Your word against hers. And she's a crazy widow with an axe to grind. No one will believe her over me. James, I need to think about this. There's nothing to think about. His voice rose, angry now. We leave tonight, or you go to prison. Those are your only options. You're asking me to leave my entire life behind. What life? You got fired. Your reputation is destroyed. You think you're going to get another job at a prestigious firm after that video played at the gala? You're done in this city, Vanessa. The only question is whether you're done and free in Dubai or done and in prison in New York. Through the wire, I heard Vanessa start to cry. Real tears, not manipulation. How did we get here? She asked. How did it all go so wrong? It went wrong when Rebecca couldn't let it go, James said. When she had to start digging and investigating instead of just accepting the situation like a normal person. Rage flooded through me. He was blaming me for discovering his crimes. Rebecca deserved better than what we did to her, Vanessa said quietly. Oh, please. Rebecca got exactly what she deserved. She stopped being a wife and became a mother. She let herself go. She stopped making an effort. What did she expect would happen? She expected you to honor your vows, Vanessa said. She expected the man she loved to stay faithful. That's not unreasonable, James. Whose side are you on here? I'm on the side of truth. And the truth is, we destroyed that woman's life. We destroyed her family. We stole from clients who trusted you. We've done terrible things, James. And maybe we deserve to face consequences. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm not going to Dubai with you. The silence was deafening. Then James' voice, low and dangerous. You're making a very big mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. If you don't come with me, everything falls on you. I'll make sure of it. Do what you have to do, James. I heard sounds of a struggle. James was grabbing Vanessa, probably trying to intimidate her. Let go of me, Vanessa shouted. That was the signal. Within seconds, I heard the door crash open and voices shouting, NYPD. Let her go. Hands where we can see them. More scuffling. James shouting. Then silence. A detective's voice came through the wire. James Morgan, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, theft, and attempted intimidation of a witness. You have the right to remain silent. I closed my laptop, my hands shaking. It was done. James was in custody. My phone rang. It was Michelle. Did you hear? She asked. Every word. Then we got him. On tape. Confessing to everything. The fraud. The escape plan. The attempt to frame Vanessa. The DA is executing the search warrants at Morrison and Associates right now. I should have felt triumphant. Victorious. But instead, I just felt exhausted. What happens now? I asked. Now the real work begins. The investigation. The trial. The media circus. Are you ready for that? I thought about Tyler and Emma, still asleep upstairs. They'd wake up in a few hours to a world where their father was a criminal, where our family would be fodder for tabloids and gossip. But they'd also wake up to a mother who'd fought back, who'd refused to be a victim, who'd done the hard, necessary work of seeking justice. I'm ready, I said. At 7 a.m., my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Vanessa standing there, flanked by 2 detectives. She looked terrible, her makeup smeared, her clothes disheveled. A bruise forming on her arm where James had grabbed her. Can I come in? She asked quietly. I hesitated. Then I stepped aside. Thank you, she said as she entered. For everything. For giving me a chance to do the right thing. Even though I didn't deserve it. You're right, I said. You didn't deserve it. But neither did James' clients. Neither did the next woman he would have destroyed. So I guess we both had to make hard choices. Vanessa nodded. I'm going to prison, aren't I? Probably, I said honestly. The DA is offering a deal, testimony against James and the firm in exchange for a reduced sentence. But yes, you'll likely serve time. Good, she said. I should. For what I did. For the people I hurt. She looked around my living room, taking in the family photos on the walls, the kids' artwork on the refrigerator. You built something real here, she said. Something I'll never have. And I tried to destroy it because I was jealous. Because I wanted what you had without doing the work to earn it. Vanessa. No, let me finish. You could have just divorced him quietly, taken your settlement, and moved on. But instead, you fought for justice. Not just for yourself, but for James' victims. That takes courage I don't have. You were brave today, I said, standing up to James, refusing to run. I was terrified, she admitted, but I kept thinking about David Chen, about how he died alone, thinking he'd lost everything. I didn't want another person to suffer because of my selfishness. Before I could respond, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Tyler appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Mom? Who's this? I looked at Vanessa, then at my son. This was it, the moment where I had to start explaining the inexplicable. Tyler, sweetie, this is Vanessa. She works with Dad. We were just discussing some business matters. Tyler studied Vanessa with the sharp intelligence of a kid who knew something was wrong, but couldn't quite figure out what. Why are you here so early? He asked. Vanessa knelt down to his level. Because your mom is helping me with something important. Something that's going to be hard, but necessary. Is Dad okay? Tyler asked, his voice small. I felt my heart break. Let's go sit down, honey. We need to talk. Over the next hour, I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I told my children the truth. Not all of it. Not the graphic details, but the essential facts. That their dad had made very bad choices. That he'd hurt people and taken money that didn't belong to him. That he was in trouble with the police. Emma cried. Tyler went silent, his face shutting down the way it did when he was processing something painful. Are you and Dad getting divorced? Tyler finally asked. Yes, I said gently. We are. Because of what he did. Yes. Is it my fault? Did I do something wrong? I pulled him into a fierce hug. No, baby. None of this is your fault. Not yours, not Emma's. Your dad made adult choices that have adult consequences. You are not responsible for any of this. But everyone at school is going to know, Tyler said, and I could hear the fear in his voice. They're going to say my dad is a criminal. He was right. They would. And there was nothing I could do to protect him from that. Yes, I said. They probably will. And that's going to be really hard. But Tyler, you are not your father. You are your own person. And I am so proud of the person you are. We sat together on the couch, me, Tyler, Emma, and surprisingly Vanessa, who stayed through the whole conversation, occasionally offering quiet support. When the kids finally went back upstairs to process everything, Vanessa stood to leave. Thank you, she said, for letting me be here for that, for showing me what real parenting looks like. Vanessa, I said as she reached the door, what you did today, testifying against James, refusing to run, that was the start of making amends. Keep doing that. Keep choosing the hard right thing over the easy wrong thing. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Then she left, escorted by the detectives back to the DA's office for more questioning. I stood in my doorway, watching her go, and felt something I never expected to feel toward my husband's mistress: sympathy. The rest of that day was a blur. Michelle called to tell me that James was being held without bail, flight risk. The DA had seized $7 million from the offshore accounts. Warrants had been issued for Harrison Morrison and two other senior partners at the firm. The media descended on my house by noon. I had to sneak the kids out the back door to my sister's house just to escape the cameras. By evening, we were the lead story on every news channel. High-profile Manhattan lawyer arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Wife and mistress team up to bring down cheating husband. The wife's revenge. How two women destroyed a legal empire. The coverage was relentless, sensational, and deeply invasive, but it was also truthful. For once, the media was getting the story right. That night, after the kids were asleep at Sarah's house, I sat alone in my living room and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. The grief, the rage, the betrayal, the bone-deep exhaustion of fighting this battle. But also something else. Something I hadn't felt in months. Pride. I had fought back. I had refused to be a victim. I had done the hard, necessary work of seeking justice, even when it meant aligning with people I had every reason to hate. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Thank you, for David, for not letting James get away with it. I can finally start to heal. Then another text. This one from Vanessa. I'm being arraigned tomorrow, pleading guilty. The DA is recommending 18 months. I deserve more, but I'm grateful for the chance to make this right. Thank you for showing me there's more to life than winning. And finally, a text from Michelle. You did it. You brought down one of the most powerful law firms in New York. You protected your kids and helped put a criminal in prison. Not bad for a suburban housewife. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start planning your future. And trust me, it's going to be amazing. I smiled and put down my phone. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The trial, the divorce, rebuilding my life and helping my children heal. But tonight, for the first time in months, I would sleep peacefully because the war was over. And I had won. The trial that shook New York. 3 months after James' arrest, I sat in a Manhattan courtroom watching my husband, my ex-husband technically, since our divorce had been finalized 2 weeks earlier, squirm in his seat as the prosecution built an airtight case against him. The divorce had been surprisingly quick. Once James was in custody and facing criminal charges, he'd lost all leverage. Michelle had negotiated a settlement that gave me everything: the house, full custody of the kids, 70% of his remaining assets, and monthly alimony payments that would continue until I remarried or he died, whichever came first. James' lawyer had tried to fight it, but with James facing 20 years in prison, he had bigger problems than asset division. Now, sitting in the courtroom gallery between Michelle and Sophia, I watched as AD Jennifer Walsh systematically destroyed the man I'd once loved. Let the record show, Walsh said, approaching the witness stand where Vanessa sat, looking pale but composed in a simple navy dress, that the witness has already pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud and is testifying today as part of her cooperation agreement with the prosecution. Nessa nodded. Yes, ma'am. M. Sterling, can you describe for the jury the first time Mr. Morgan approached you about stealing from a client? The defense attorney jumped up. Objection. Inflammatory language. The prosecution is characterizing. Sustained. Judge Catherine Rivera said. Ms. Walsh, please rephrase. Can you describe the first time Mr. Morgan discussed redirecting client funds? It was March 15th of last year. Vanessa began, her voice steady. We were working late on the Peterson settlement case. Edgar Peterson was a 92-year-old man who'd won a medical malpractice suit against a hospital. For the next hour, Vanessa walked the jury through every detail of the fraud. The offshore accounts, the forged documents, the way James had manipulated accounting records to hide the missing money. She was a compelling witness, articulate, remorseful, and devastatingly honest about her own culpability. Why did you agree to participate in this scheme? Walsh asked. Vanessa looked down at her hands. Because I was in love with James, or I thought I was. He made me feel special, important. He told me we were building a future together, and I wanted to believe him so badly that I ignored every red flag, every warning sign. Did you know he was married? Yes. Did you know he had children? Yes. And yet you pursued a relationship with him anyway? Yes. Vanessa's voice broke slightly. I told myself that his marriage was already over, that he and Rebecca, Immerse, Morgan, were just staying together for the kids. I told myself a lot of lies to justify what I was doing. Walsh pulled up an email on the large screen visible to the jury. This is an email you sent to Mr. Morgan on June 3rd. Can you read the highlighted portion for the jury? Vanessa read. The Henderson Trust Fund distribution is next week. If we move quickly, we can skim at least $500,000 before the family notices. They're too busy fighting over the estate to pay attention to the details. And did you, in fact, skim $500,000 from the Henderson Trust Fund? Yes. We moved it to an account in the Cayman Islands. An account that Mr. Morgan controlled? Yes. Did you have any access to this account? No. James told me he'd give me access once we were together, once he divorced Rebecca. But that never happened. Walsh turned to the jury. So let me make sure I understand this correctly. You helped Mr. Morgan steal from clients, helped him set up offshore accounts, participated in fraud that ultimately totaled over $7 million, and in return you received some jewelry, dinners, use of an apartment James rented, maybe $200,000 in gifts over the course of our relationship, while Mr. Morgan himself had access to $7 million. Yes. Sounds like you were being used, M. Sterling. Objection. The defense attorney shouted. The witness's feelings about being used are not relevant. I'll allow it, Judge Rivera said. The witness may answer. Vanessa looked directly at James for the first time since taking the stand. Yes. I was being used. I was a convenient partner in crime who James could blame if everything went wrong, which is exactly what he tried to do when he was arrested. Walsh introduced the recording from the morning of James' arrest, the wire Vanessa had worn to their final meeting. The courtroom fell silent as James' voice filled the space. We leave tonight, or you go to prison. Those are your only options. You're asking me to leave my entire life behind. What life? You got fired. Your reputation is destroyed. The only question is whether you're done and free in Dubai, or done and in prison in New York. Several jurors shifted uncomfortably. I saw one woman, probably in her 50s, shake her head in disgust. When the recording finished, Walsh asked, M. Sterling, when Mr. Morgan said those words to you, what did you understand him to mean? That he was going to frame me for everything. That unless I ran away with him, he would make sure I took all the blame for the fraud we'd committed together. And what did you do? I refused to run. I knew it meant I'd face consequences, but I couldn't let James escape justice. And I couldn't let him hurt anyone else. Walsh nodded. No further questions. The defense attorney stood up for cross-examination, and I could see him preparing to attack Vanessa's credibility. But as the afternoon wore on, it became clear that there wasn't much he could do. Vanessa admitted to everything, the affair, the fraud, her own culpability. There was nothing to impeach because she wasn't trying to hide anything. When court adjourned for the day, I stood in the hallway outside the courtroom, surrounded by reporters shouting questions. Mrs. Morgan, how does it feel to see your husband on trial? Do you have any sympathy for Vanessa Sterling? Are you satisfied with your divorce settlement? Will you be testifying in the trial? Michelle pushed through the crowd, creating a path for me. No comment. My client will not be making any statements at this time. We made it to her car and drove away, leaving the media circus behind. You're up tomorrow, Michelle said. Are you ready? Tomorrow was my day to testify. I'd been dreading it for weeks. I'm ready, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Remember what we practiced. Answer the questions honestly, but don't elaborate unnecessarily. Don't let the defense attorney bait you into getting emotional or angry. What if I can't help it? What if I see James sitting there and I just lose it? Michelle pulled over to the side of the road and turned to face me. Rebecca, you have faced down your cheating husband, his mistress, a law firm full of powerful attorneys, and a media circus that would have destroyed most people. You orchestrated one of the most successful takedowns of white-collar criminals I've ever seen. You can handle a defense attorney asking you questions. She was right. I'd already survived the worst. What was a little cross-examination compared to everything else? That night, I lay in bed preparing for the next day. Sarah had the kids again. We'd agreed they shouldn't be anywhere near the courthouse during the trial. They were doing okay, all things considered. Tyler had started therapy and was slowly opening up about his feelings. Emma had good days and bad days, but she was resilient. They both made it clear they didn't want to see their father. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And I wasn't going to force them. At 7 a.m., I got a text from an unexpected source. Vanessa, good luck today. You're going to do great. And Rebecca, thank you for giving me a chance to make things right. I know it doesn't fix what I did, but it means everything to me. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Me, thank you for having the courage to testify. I hope you find peace when this is over. Vanessa. I'm going to prison. Peace might take a while, but knowing I helped stop James from hurting anyone else. That's a start. The courtroom was packed when I arrived. I recognized several of James' former colleagues sitting in the gallery, probably forced to attend by the firm's lawyers. Harrison Morrison was scheduled to testify later in the week. He'd made a deal with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. Walsh met me in a small conference room before court began. I'm going to walk you through the timeline of discovering the affair, she explained. How you felt, what you did, why you decided to investigate. The defense is going to try to paint you as a vindictive ex-wife seeking revenge. Don't let them. What if they ask about working with Vanessa? Be honest. Say that you recognized she was also a victim of James' manipulation and that you believed in seeking justice over revenge. The jury will respect that. At 9 a.m., I was called to the stand. I placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Then I sat down and looked out at the courtroom. James sat at the defense table, wearing an expensive suit that made him look like the successful lawyer he used to be, not the criminal he'd become. When our eyes met, he looked away first. Good. He should be ashamed. Walsh approached the witness stand with a kind smile. Good morning, Mrs. Morgan. Can you state your full name for the record? Rebecca Ann Morgan. And how long were you married to the defendant? 13 years. We divorced 2 months ago. Can you tell the jury about the day you discovered your husband was having an affair? I took a deep breath and began the story I'd told so many times now. The lunch I'd planned to surprise James. Walking into Starbucks and seeing him kiss Vanessa. The confrontation outside. How did you feel in that moment? Walsh asked gently. Devastated. Betrayed. Like my entire life had been a lie. What did you do next? I went home. I cried. And then I made a decision. What decision was that? That I wasn't going to just accept this. I was going to find out the truth about what James had been doing. All of it. Walsh walked me through hiring Michelle, then Marcus the private investigator. She showed the jury some of the photos Marcus had taken, James and Vanessa at expensive restaurants, checking into hotels, holding hands in public. Why did you hire a private investigator? Walsh asked. Because James is a lawyer. A good one. I knew he would hide assets, lie about the extent of the affair, make everything as difficult as possible. I needed evidence that he couldn't deny. And what did your investigation uncover? More than I expected. Not just the affair, but financial irregularities. Large sums of money moving through accounts I didn't recognize. Expensive gifts purchased from our joint accounts that I never received. What did you do with this information? I took it to my attorney, and we discovered that the financial irregularities were more than just gifts for his mistress. They were evidence of client fraud. The defense attorney objected, claiming I wasn't qualified to determine what constituted fraud. But Judge Rivera allowed my testimony to continue. When did you decide to contact the district attorney's office? Walsh asked. When I realized James wasn't just cheating on me. He was stealing from vulnerable clients, elderly people, families dealing with grief and estate settlements, people who trusted him to protect their interests. I couldn't let that continue. Even though exposing the fraud would create a media circus that would affect your children, this was the crucial moment. The moment where I had to explain why I'd chosen justice over privacy. Yes, I said firmly. Because protecting my children means teaching them that there are consequences for bad choices. That you don't get to hurt people and walk away unscathed. I didn't want Tyler and Emma to grow up thinking that powerful men can do whatever they want without repercussions. I saw several jurors nodding. Good. Walsh continued questioning me for another hour, establishing the timeline of events, the evidence I'd gathered, the decision to work with both Sophia and Vanessa. Then it was the defense attorney's turn. Richard Castellano was one of the best criminal defense lawyers in New York, which made sense, since James would have demanded the best. He was in his 60s, with silver hair and the kind of courtroom presence that came from decades of experience. Mrs. Morgan, he began, his voice dripping with false sympathy. This must be very difficult for you, having to testify against the father of your children. What's difficult is watching my children deal with the fact that their father is a criminal, I replied evenly. Castellano's eyes narrowed slightly. You seem quite certain of your ex-husband's guilt. I am certain. I've seen the evidence. I've heard the recordings. I know what he did. Do you? Or are you simply a scorned woman seeking revenge against the husband who left you for a younger, more attractive woman? Michelle had warned me he would try this. I kept my voice calm. James didn't leave me for Vanessa. He was using Vanessa to help him steal money. He was planning to frame her for the fraud and run away with $7 million. I'm not the scorned woman here. I'm the one who helped prevent a criminal from escaping justice. But you admit you were hurt by the affair? Of course I was hurt. But my feelings about the affair are separate from the facts about the fraud. Are they? Isn't it true that you worked with Vanessa Sterling, your husband's mistress, to orchestrate his downfall? That you two women colluded to destroy him? We didn't destroy him. He destroyed himself through his own choices. Vanessa and I simply made sure he faced the consequences. Castellano pulled out a document. This is a statement from Harrison Morrison, claiming that you threatened to ruin the firm unless they paid you $10 million. Is that true? I felt my pulse quicken. That was a lie. A complete fabrication. No, that is absolutely not true. Harrison Morrison offered me $5 million and an NDA to keep quiet about the fraud. I refused. You refused $5 million? Yes. Because it was hush money. They wanted to bury the truth to protect the firm's reputation. Or maybe you refused because you wanted more. Maybe you wanted complete destruction of your husband and his career, regardless of the truth. The truth is that James Morgan stole over $7 million from clients. The truth is that he committed fraud, planned to flee the country, and tried to frame his accomplice when he got caught. My wanting him held accountable for those crimes doesn't make them less true. Castellano tried several more angles, questioning my motives, my relationship with Vanessa, my decision to involve Sofia Martinez. But I stood firm, answering each question calmly and honestly. After 2 hours, he finally said, "No further questions." Walsh stood for a redirect. "Mrs. Morgan, Mr. Castellano suggested that you orchestrated your ex-husband's downfall. Let me ask you directly. Did you plant any evidence against James Morgan?" "No." "Did you forge any documents or recordings?" "No." "Did you force him to steal from his clients?" "No." "Did you force him to have an affair with Vanessa Sterling?" "No." "Did you force him to plan to flee the country with $7 million in stolen money?" "No." Walsh turned to the jury. "So everything James Morgan is accused of, the fraud, the theft, the attempted witness intimidation, those were all his own choices?" "Yes," I said clearly. "Those were all his choices. Thank you, Mrs. Morgan. No further questions." I stepped down from the witness stand feeling exhausted but triumphant. I'd done it. I testified without breaking down, without losing my composure, without giving the defense any ammunition to use against the prosecution's case. As I walked past James on my way out of the courtroom, he grabbed my arm. "Becca," he hissed, "please, think about the kids. They need their father." I pulled my arm away and looked him directly in the eyes. "The kids need a father they can respect. Right now, you're not that person. Maybe someday you will be. But today, you're just a criminal facing the consequences of his own choices." I walked out of the courtroom and found Sophia waiting for me in the hallway. "You were amazing," she said, pulling me into a hug. David would have been proud. "Thank you for being here," I said. "For everything. I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have," she said. "You're stronger than you know, Rebecca. You always were." The trial continued for another week. The prosecution called financial experts who walked the jury through the complex web of offshore accounts and fraudulent transactions. They called James' clients, including Edgar Peterson's daughter, who sobbed on the stand as she described how her father's settlement money had been stolen. They called employees from Morrison and Associates who testified about the firm's culture of looking the other way when partners engaged in questionable practices. And finally, they called Harrison Morrison himself. Morrison had made a deal, testify against James in exchange for a reduced sentence. He took the stand looking 20 years older than he had at the charity gala, his power and prestige stripped away by scandal. "Did you know James Morgan was stealing from clients?" Walsh asked. Morrison hesitated. His lawyer had clearly coached him to minimize his own involvement, but he was under oath. "I suspected there were irregularities," he finally said, "but I didn't have proof." "Did you investigate these irregularities?" I asked James about them. He assured me everything was legitimate. "And you believed him?" I wanted to believe him. James was one of our top earners. Losing him would have cost the firm millions in revenue. "So you valued revenue over your client's trust?" Morrison's silence was damning. Walsh introduced emails showing that Morrison had been warned multiple times about potential fraud, but had chosen to ignore the warnings. She showed documents proving he'd helped James set up some of the offshore structures used to hide stolen money. By the time Morrison stepped down from the stand, it was clear that Morrison and Associates had been complicit in the fraud, even if they hadn't directly participated in stealing the money. The firm would never recover from this scandal. Already, major clients had fled. Associates were jumping ship to other firms. The Morrison name, once synonymous with prestige and excellence, was now synonymous with corruption and fraud. On the final day of testimony, the defense called their only witness, James Morgan himself. The courtroom was packed. Everyone wanted to hear what James would say in his own defense. He took the stand looking confident, like he'd done 1,000 times before as a lawyer. But this time, he was the one being questioned. His attorney walked him through a carefully constructed narrative. He'd made mistakes, yes, but he'd been under tremendous pressure. The firm demanded impossible billable hours. His marriage was failing. He'd fallen in love with Vanessa and made bad decisions in the heat of passion. As for the client fraud, he claimed it had started small, just moving money around to make the firm's accounting look better, and had spiraled out of control before he realized what was happening. It was a masterful performance, designed to elicit sympathy from the jury. James was still a skilled attorney, even when defending himself. But then Walsh stood up for cross-examination, and everything fell apart. Mr. Morgan, you testified that you fell in love with Vanessa Sterling, and that led to bad decisions. But isn't it true that you were planning to abandon her and flee the country alone? No, I asked her to come with me. After telling her you'd frame her for the fraud if she didn't? James' confidence faltered. I was trying to protect her. By threatening her with prison? Walsh pulled out the recording again. Let's listen to your exact words. If you don't come with me, everything falls on you. I've already set it up. The recording played again, James' voice echoing through the courtroom. That sounds less like love and more like coercion, wouldn't you say? I was panicking. You were covering your tracks, Walsh interrupted. You were eliminating anyone who could testify against you. First Vanessa, then your wife. Isn't that true? No. You transferred $7 million to offshore accounts that only you could access. You purchased a one-way ticket to Dubai under a false name. You told Vanessa that your children would be fine without you. Those aren't the actions of a man who made mistakes in the heat of passion. Those are the actions of a calculated criminal. James tried to regain control, but Walsh was relentless. She walked him through every piece of evidence, every lie, every manipulation. With each question, James' composure crumbled further. By the time Walsh finished, James looked defeated. The confident lawyer was gone, replaced by a desperate man facing the reality of his crimes. Closing arguments took place the next day. The defense argued that James was a flawed man who'd made mistakes, but didn't deserve to spend decades in prison. The prosecution argued that James was a predator who'd betrayed every trust placed in him and needed to be held accountable. The jury deliberated for 2 days. I spent those 2 days in a state of nervous anxiety, unable to eat or sleep properly. What if the jury believed the defense? What if James walked free? What if all of this had been for nothing? On the afternoon of the second day, Michelle called. The jury's back. We have a verdict. I raced to the courthouse, my heart pounding. The courtroom was even more packed than before, filled with reporters, James' former clients, and curious onlookers. James sat at the defense table looking pale and drawn. When he saw me enter, he mouthed something that looked like, I'm sorry. Too little, too late. Judge Rivera entered and the bailiff called for order. Has the jury reached a verdict? She asked. The jury foreman, a middle-aged black woman who'd taken copious notes throughout the trial, stood up. We have, Your Honor, on the count of conspiracy to commit fraud. How do you find? Guilty. I felt tears spring to my eyes. On the count of theft by deception? Guilty. On the count of wire fraud? Guilty. Count after count. The verdict was the same. Guilty. 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 James dropped his head into his hands. His attorney put a hand on his shoulder, but there was nothing left to say. When the jury foreman finished reading all 17 guilty verdicts, Judge Rivera thanked the jury and set a sentencing date for 6 weeks later. As the courtroom erupted in conversation, I sat frozen, processing what had just happened. It was over. Really over. James Morgan, the man I'd loved and married and built a life with, was a convicted felon who would spend the next 20 years in prison. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated, but instead, I just felt empty. Michelle found me in the hallway afterward, surrounded by reporters. Rebecca, how do you feel about the verdict? Do you think justice was served? What message do you want to send to other women dealing with infidelity? I looked at the cameras, at the reporters with their microphones, at the crowd of people waiting to hear what I had to say. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I decided to speak publicly. I want to say something, I announced, and the hallway fell silent. 6 months ago, I discovered my husband was having an affair. I could have divorced him quietly, taken a settlement, and tried to move on. Many women in my position do exactly that, and I don't judge them for it. Everyone has to make the choice that's right for them and their children. But when I discovered that James wasn't just cheating, he was stealing from vulnerable clients, I knew I had to act. Not because I wanted revenge, but because staying silent would have made me complicit. To other women who find themselves in similar situations, you are not powerless. You do not have to accept betrayal or abuse or criminality. You have the right to seek justice, to protect yourself and your children, to demand accountability. And to the men who think they can betray their families and break the law without consequences, you're wrong. We're watching. We're documenting. And we will hold you accountable. The crowd erupted in questions, but I pushed through them and walked away, Michelle at my side. That was one hell of a statement, she said with a smile. It needed to be said. We climbed into her car and drove away from the courthouse, leaving the media circus behind. What now? I asked. What happens next? Now we wait for sentencing. James is looking at 20 to 25 years. Harrison Morrison will probably get 8 to 10. Vanessa will serve her 18 months and hopefully rebuild her life. And me? You, Michelle said, get to start over. You have your freedom, your children, financial security, and the knowledge that you did the right thing, even when it was hard. I leaned back in my seat, exhausted but at peace. That night, I picked up Tyler and Emma from Sarah's house. They'd been following the trial coverage and knew their father had been found guilty. Is Dad going to prison? Emma asked quietly. Yes, sweetheart, he is. For how long? A long time. Tyler was silent for a moment, then asked, did he really steal all that money? Yes. And he was going to run away and leave us. I hesitated, but decided they deserved the truth. Yes, he was. Tyler nodded slowly, processing this information. Then I'm glad you stopped him. I'm glad he's going to prison. Tyler. No, Mom. I know he's our dad and we're supposed to love him or whatever. But what he did was wrong. Really wrong. And if you hadn't stopped him, he would have hurt more people. You're a hero. I pulled both my kids into a hug, tears streaming down my face. I'm not a hero, I said. I'm just a mom who did what she had to do to protect her family and do the right thing. That's what heroes are, Emma said simply. 2 weeks later, I received a letter from Vanessa. She was already serving her sentence at a minimum security facility in upstate New York. The letter was short. Dear Rebecca, I'm writing this from prison, which feels appropriate given everything I've done. I know I can never make up for the pain I caused you and your children. I know that saying I'm sorry is inadequate, but I want you to know that you changed my life. Not by destroying it. I did that myself. But by showing me that there's more to being a woman than beauty and manipulation and winning at any cost. You could have just divorced James and walked away. Instead, you fought for justice for people you'd never even met. You taught me what real strength looks like. I have 17 more months to serve. When I get out, I'm going to live differently. I'm going to be the kind of woman who builds things instead of destroying them. The kind of woman you are. Thank you for giving me a chance to do the right thing. Even though I didn't deserve it. Vanessa. I read the letter 3 times, then filed it away with the rest of the documents from this chapter of my life. 6 weeks later, I returned to court for James' sentencing. Judge Rivera had a reputation for tough sentences in white-collar crime cases, and she didn't disappoint. Mr. Morgan, she began, looking at James with barely concealed contempt. You were given every advantage in life. Education, opportunity, a loving family. You chose to throw all of that away for greed and ego. You betrayed your client's trust. You stole from vulnerable people who depended on you. You corrupted your profession. And when you were caught, you tried to destroy everyone around you to save yourself. This court has seen many criminals, but few with the level of calculated malice you've demonstrated. You deserve no mercy. She sentenced him to 23 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole for at least 15 years. James was 62 years old. He would be in his 70s before he saw freedom again. As the bailiffs led him away, he looked back at me one last time. I didn't look away. I wanted him to see that I wasn't broken, that I'd survived, that I'd won. Then he was gone. And it was finally, truly over. I walked out of that courthouse feeling lighter than I had in months. The weight of betrayal, of fighting, of seeking justice, it was all behind me now. Michelle walked me to my car. So, she said, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? I smiled. I'm going to finish my doctorate in psychology. I'm going to help other women navigate divorce and betrayal. I'm going to raise my kids to be good people who understand that actions have consequences. And I'm going to live my life on my own terms, without fear or shame or anyone else's definition of who I should be. Sounds like a plan, Michelle said, pulling me into a hug. And Rebecca, if you ever need anything, legal advice, a friend, or just someone to remind you how far you've come, I'm here. Thank you, I said, for everything. That night, I sat in my living room, my house now, not ours, and opened a bottle of very expensive wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. This seemed special enough. Tyler and Emma were upstairs, doing homework and being normal kids despite everything they'd been through. They were resilient. They would be okay. And so would I. I raised my glass in a silent toast. To justice. To survival. To new beginnings. And to the woman I'd become through the fire, stronger, wiser, and utterly unbreakable. The revenge was complete. But more importantly, so was my transformation. James Morgan had tried to destroy me with his betrayal. Instead, he'd created something he never expected. A woman who refused to be a victim. And that was the greatest victory of all. 2 years later, I stood in front of 200 women at a conference in Los Angeles sharing my story. The silent move had become more than just the title of my revenge story. It had become a movement, a book, a podcast, a support network for women dealing with betrayal and seeking justice. My doctorate was complete. My private practice was thriving. And most importantly, Tyler and Emma were happy, healthy, and well-adjusted kids who understood that their father's mistakes didn't define them. James was 2 years into his sentence. He tried to reach out several times, but I declined all contact. Maybe someday I'd be ready to forgive him for the sake of the kids. But not today. Vanessa had been released from prison and was working at a women's shelter, helping other women escape abusive situations. She sent me a card every Christmas, thanking me again for showing her a better way. Sophia Martinez had finally found peace. She'd sold her house in Boston and moved to California, where she'd started a foundation in David's name to help families affected by suicide. And me? I was exactly where I needed to be. As I finished my speech, a young woman in the front row raised her hand. "How did you find the courage to fight back?" she asked. "How did you know you would win?" I smiled. I didn't know I would win, but I knew I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try. The courage didn't come from certainty. It came from refusing to accept that powerful men could hurt people without consequences. Every woman here has that same courage inside her. Sometimes it just takes the right moment, the right catalyst to bring it out. For me, that moment was watching my husband kiss his mistress. For you, it might be something else. But when that moment comes, don't let fear stop you from doing what's right. Because here's what I learned. You're stronger than you think. You're smarter than they give you credit for. And you absolutely have the power to change your story from victim to victor. That one silent move, that decision to gather evidence instead of just crying, to seek justice instead of just surviving, that changed everything. Not just for me, but for James' victims, for my children, and for every woman who's heard my story and realized she doesn't have to accept betrayal. So make your move, silent or loud, strategic or spontaneous, whatever feels right for you. But make it. Take control of your narrative, and never, ever let anyone make you feel powerless again. The room erupted in applause. As I left the stage, I checked my phone and saw a text from Tyler. "Mom, saw your speech streaming online. You killed it. We're proud of you. Love you." I smiled, tears in my eyes. This was my life now. Not perfect, but mine. Built on my own terms, defined by my own choices, free from the shadow of James Morgan's betrayal. The revenge had been sweet, but the life I'd built afterward, that was even sweeter. And it all started with one silent move that left them completely exposed.